What's up, everyone? I am back with another tournament report from a league challenge. Today I played at the Curio Castle in Cavern in Centerville, where there was a 26 Master 29 player league challenge tonight, and it did fully cap. We hit capacity on a Wednesday night, which is pretty awesome. Really cool to see a lot of the local scene came out tonight. A lot of cool guys that I like, guys and gals. And it was a lot of fun just seeing a lot of familiar faces that I haven't seen since, I don't know, like in May, really, for locals. So I did end up taking the win tonight with Gardevoir. And if you guys watched my last video on the tournament report, I kind of broke down a lot of the card choices and card changes that I chose to make as the video was going. The big changes from last video to this video. So from challenge to challenge, I kind of change around some text based on what people are playing. And in the local area, it's very important to know what players are playing, because a lot of the time people try to stick to one deck and don't really pivot, myself included. Like if I like Gardevoir, I'm going to stick to Gardevoir. So sometimes it's worth trying to metagame. Sometimes people will just play the same deck over and over and over again. So I knew that that room had a lot of Raging Bolt players today and a couple of Zard players. People who historically bring Charizard. So I went ahead and cut a Bravery Charm for a second TM Devolution because I felt like it would help make my Charizard matchup a little bit better. I was debating cutting Greninja or Enhanced Hammer as well for a second Professor Turo scenario, because against Charizard and some other matchups, you can just go into use your Gardevoir, pick it back up, and then attack with Flutter Mane, and then spread damage onto the board. And then they can't take a 2-prize attack on that turn, so then they have to kind of flounder around and just take another 1-prize knockout, which is you get one more Flutter Mane into another Turo scenario off, which allows you to basically spread enough damage to, with double Monkey, or even one Monkey every turn, devolve their whole board, ideally, and just put them in a spot that they can't retaliate from. The Klefki was kind of useless at the challenge on Sunday, and I theoried more matchups, and I was like, I don't really think the Klefki does anything besides Lost Box specifically, but second Flutter Mane is pretty applicable in a lot of matchups and a lot of scenarios. So I just went ahead and snagged the second Flutter Mane. I just chose to play it because it's just, I don't know, man, the card's pretty insane, actually. Like, the more I think about it, the more the card was just broken in a lot of scenarios, so I chose to play it. Get into the challenge around when I hit Aiden. Aiden and I have played plenty of times. I'm sure you've heard me talk about it on this channel here. Aiden typically loves playing his Charizard, and so I was like, okay, cool. My text might come off the rip and do better. And Aiden was playing Dragapult Charizard Pidgeot, lo and behold. So Aiden had a pretty good setup. My setup was a little bit slow. I was looking for a turn 2 Cresselia knockout on his lone Pidgey that he didn't get to evolve up. He went Dracloak, double Charmander Pidgey on board, basically, type thing. And I missed the Gardevoir, so I had to just settle for evoing a single Kirlia instead. And then Aiden, did his thing. I did my thing. I was unable to Turo the Gardevoir the turn that I played it. So Aiden was able to boss up my Gardevoir and take a knockout to go down to 2 prize cards. But I had littered enough damage onto his board that with Monkey Dory that turn, I was able to devolve his board and take 4 prize cards on a Dracloak, 2 Charmanders that were now unevolved from Charizard. So I went Dragapult to hand, 2 Charmanders to hand, and I took 3 prize cards, not more than that. So the board was now Pidgey and Bidoof, and off that he went Candy Pidgeot again, which I was like, okay, that's his 3rd candy. It's really unfortunate for me, and reestablished a Dreepy and a Charmander, with an Unfair Stamp. But then he Unfair Stamped me into, I had a 8-card deck at this point, maybe pretty low. He Unfair Stamped me into the boss orders that I needed, and an Arven, and I went ahead and used Arven to get Counter Catcher, because it was 3 to 2 prize cards. There was no attack coming at me. He passed with Pidgeot active, and I was able to just gust up the Charmander, move 60 to the Dreepy, and just attack with Flutter Mane again, and take 2 prize cards there. And unfortunately, I made a little bit of a blunder here that could have punished me, where I left my Gardevoir with 30 HP. So Radzard Defiance Belt Energy, Counter Catcher, or Boss would have knocked me out for game. But Defiance Belt was gone, and Unfair Stamp was his A-spec of choice. So I figured there was actually no way that could happen. It was definitely a mistake on my part. I think I definitely did misplay. I should just move the 30 off of that instead of the Flutter Mane I think I moved it off of. The 30 on the Flutter Mane just does not matter if that Pokemon goes down. So really silly. He goes Boss. He goes Nest Ball for Radzard, attach to Radzard, boss up my guy, the Barrel for 4, Quick Search, and I was like, oh my god, I lose. And then he didn't have another modifier, and I was like, oh my god, I win. So he moves up the Radzard and attacks into my Gardevoir for 250, puts me at 280, and then I just go double Monkey, to anything, doesn't matter, and then I accelerate 3 from discard and just knock him out with Gardevoir. So I can just accelerate to move the energies. So now I'm 1-0. Round 2, I hit Justin, who is playing Blocklax, and I know Justin as a Blocklax guy, and Justin and I were talking before this round. This is the person I played in round 3 of Gains Market as well, the weekend before, and Justin basically told me that he was playing the Chi-Yu and the Fire and the Picnic Basket in his Blocklax deck. So I basically I opened Screamtail, which was pretty unfortunate, and I got the perfect setup where I got to triple Ralts, double Flutter, Gardevoir after Turoing up my Screamtail, and every knockout I took from that point onwards was purposeful, and basically Justin got down to a board where he had like used up 2 Pal Pads, I think 3 pennies. He yelled cheered back the pennies, was able to draw them back in. He used Silene for the Pal Pads, and he hit double tails, and he lost the game on the spot there. But I had like a 9-card hand, about 10, 11 cards left in deck. Maybe a little bit more, maybe like 13. I know the exact number. I had Rod left. I had Boss's Orders left, and I had 2 Ionos remaining. So my board was never going to get locked, and so every single turn I was going to be able to either go 10 with Teleportation Burst or 190 with my Gardevoir attack, and I think he had just used his 4th countercatcher the turn prior, so all 4 countercatchers were now gone, so Boss was the only way for him to gust up something, and if he's bossing, he's not pennying, which means that I can still keep Teleportation Bursting, putting him in a weird spot where now he can no longer loop supporters, so my lock was now established, and the Rotom was still on the board, because the turn he conceded, I think I still had 5 prize cards remaining, so the game was still very, very, like infantile, I think, in that stage, even though Justin had his entire deck in his hand. But I could have still bossed the Rotom at some point. And I think Justin if he had gone into like Chi-Yu and 1 Lax, 1 Chi-Yu and just looped that, there's a chance that I might not have been able to win the game. But I think based on my start, I just was doing enough damage that it did not matter. And I could have just chained and used my Ionos earlier and just put him in a spot where his hand is just dead if he never puts the Rotom down, which he had to put down. So got pretty lucky there that I knew how to play against the Lax matchup. I talked to Will Jenkins a lot about this, and I like kind of theorized this. So this is where like my knowledge and expertise of just playing Pokemon comes into handy, despite my break, which is really nice. So 2-0, and then round 3 I go up against Raging Bolt. Cornerstone was in the deck as well. So my opponent basically gets off to a pretty hot start. It was Mr. Steven. He gets the catcher KO on a Curlia. Was the 2nd catcher of the game, and then he goes 3rd catcher at some point, hits tails, and I was like, oh my god, there's 3 in addition to prime catcher. Then he gets the 4th catcher KO on Gardevoir to go down to 2 prize cards at this point. We were like 2 to... So I took my first knockout on Bolt with Drifloon. He killed the Drifloon. I went Screamtail the following turn, killed something, and then he went catcher kill Gardevoir to go to 2. So now we're 2 to 2, and I have my Screamtail still set up. So I just evolve up my Curlias. I trade up a little bit. I Monkey Dory twice. I had both Monkey Dory set up. So I Monkey 60 to 1 Raging Bolt. I 160 I think the same Raging Bolt, I want to say. And he just retreats into, or he switch cards into the other one and just attacks me. And at this point now, like my deck is like 9 cards. Rod wins me game because Artisan was in play. Because I can just go back into Screamtail. I already have Gardevoir in hand, but my hand was just Gardevoir countercatcher because I refinemented after Ionoing, and then I looked at my 2 cards and I was like, it's countercatcher Gardevoir. I can't refinement again. Like these 2 cards are literally the 2 cards that win me the game, and his Iono was already gone, so I was like, I just sit here and I win next turn. So that's exactly what happened. I just showed him countercatcher Iono or countercatcher Gardevoir, and the game ended. So we go to round 4, where I'm against Armarouge, a deck that I'm not super familiar with, and my start ends up being really, really slow. Like I only get 1 Curlia up and running. After choosing to go first on the flip. No other Raltses on the board, but I do hit the Enhanced Hammer, so I'm able to Enhanced Hammer away his DCE to start the game. Then he goes into Arc V-Star, attaches, passes. I'm able to Refinement, get 2 more Ralts onto the board. I make the gut read that he's not going to be able to knock me out because he needs a lot of pieces. And I'm able to go into basically an early attacking pattern, putting myself in a position where his only win con is like attacking into Gardevoir with Arc for 200, and then being able to Monkey 30 onto the Gardevoir later, or even the same turn, and Delphoxing for game. And I knew he played the Delphox because I sat next to him a couple rounds earlier, so I'm able to Turo up. I just saved all the cards in my hands to go Turo up a guy, put back down the Manaphy. So my board is like Gardevoir, Curlia, double Monkey Dory with energies, Manaphy. So I'm just like cooking at this point. And I think I evolved into a second Gardevoir at some point with one Curlia still in play. So I'm just able to like keep the flow going, and I just never let him get a Charcadet set up, and I'm just able to put the damage counters where I need to, and I just kind of sweep that game. Wasn't really a concern that I was going to lose that. Once my start was pretty slow, I thought it was maybe going to be over and I lose, but I'm able to just outlast the early aggression of Arceus, and once the Charcadets are off the board, and there's no threat of an Armarouge, there's no like weird attackers that can come into play and do something like gouging fire, yeah, something like that. So 4-0. Pairing scope for the next round. I'm the only 4-0 at this point, but I do get down paired, and there's like a hefty amount of store credit on the line, so an ID here is not going to work for me. So I'm up against Henry. Henry's playing, I think it was Henry, was playing Lost Box Turbo. My start is once again really slow. He goes first. He sets up pretty nicely. He has a turn 2 that's pretty decent as well. Gets 6 into the Lost Zone, is able to boss up my guy, take a knockout with Cram to start the game. I do my whole turn. I noticed at this point 6 of his switch cards are gone. 3 switches and 3 switch cards are gone. So I'm like, okay, this Cram is kind of stuck in the active. I go into Greninja. I go Evo. I go with the Evo, and I set up my board now. I have 3 Curlia into play again. It's like my board is like 3 Curlia, Manaphy, Monkey Dory, this guy, and then he ends up going Bundle. Bundles my... I throw up Monkey Dory because it's just a free sack, and I have Stamp in hand, so I can Stamp. But at this point, I'm a little apprehensive because he's only seen 1 chorus, and that came off of a Pokestop, so he hasn't played a single chorus all game. He pop-headed it back in with the boss, so his like now like 20 card deck that's very thin has, I think, all 4 chorus in it if none are prized. So I'm definitely in a bad spot, but I guess there was like a ton of cards in his hand that I didn't really account for in this situation. I was going to Stamp every time, and this is kind of where the game got fucky. We were both really tired, so we weren't paying attention, and he puts down the Iron Hands. He rods back, I think, 5 energy. He triple gates, gate to active, gate 4 to the hands, retreats his Cramorant, and Iron Hands is my Monkey Dory. I do my whole turn, like my whole turn is being done. I Arven for the Drifloon Charm. I get everything into play. I like have now Vesseled Energies. I've Refinemented twice. I get into a Gardevoir, and I slam the Stamp. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I take 2 prize cards here. He comes back up with Cram, takes 1. And I'm just thinking, dude, how did I fall so far behind in this game? I feel like I wasn't that far behind. And then he picks up his Lost Zone and goes, I couldn't have done that. And I was like, wait, what? And I was like, I only have 6 in the Lost Zone, which is something that I felt really, really, really bad for because I should have caught. And we sit there, and my opponent is just ready to take the game loss and move on. But I feel really bad, so I sit there trying to reverse the entire situation for like 5 minutes. Shout out to the judges for humoring me. Because I was like, okay, if we put these cards back, if we do this, if we go back into the Monkey Dory, and then we just say you take a Cram knockout here instead, hands goes back into your hand, the rods, let's just say the rods aren't even like are played, so the energy's back in the deck, you just can't play the gates are in your hand, and so like we tried to rewind all these things, and he's like, these are my 2 prize cards, and we're like, okay, we can agree that those are the prize cards. I don't even know what they were. I think it was like Rod Gate, and I'm like, we just put those back into the prize cards and shuffle up, and you take 1 prize card, and then he's like, wouldn't you play your turn differently, though? Because you're not going to put Drifloon Charm on the board. And I was like, shoot. You're right. Like, I wasn't going to put that. I was just going to go to Cresselia at that point. And Lunar Blast the Cramorant and Stamp in the same turn. And I was like, this really complicates things. And so they come back. They basically say there's too many unknowns involved, and a game loss has to be issued to my opponent. And in that moment, I knew that I had already won the challenge because I was 4-0. So I was like, if I offer an ID to my opponent right now, would there be anything you can do to stop me? And they were like, we can't stop you. And I was like, would you like to ID? And my opponent's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. Because I really feel bad because I think he probably wins that game a majority of the time, even without the hands, because of how far behind I was. And my prizes were 2 Super Odd. I prized both of my Super Odd. And if I didn't take them off the first couple prizes, I was in such a bad situation that I felt really, really bad. Like, I'm probably going to win the challenge anyway, because if he beats me, I would have had 3 4-1s and a 3-2 in my resistance, and I think that's like pretty hard to lose the challenge from that point onwards. But like I just felt so bad because this poor guy just like got knocked out of store credit because of my mistake, because I wasn't paying attention to how many cards were in the Lost Zone. And so I ID'd with him because there was top 8 prizing. He ended up getting top 8 prizing. I think he got 6th or 7th. He tried to give me some of his prizing. I was like, no, man, just get out of here. Like, I don't need like I still feel bad to right now that I messed up that board state and I messed up that scenario when I should have been more alert. And then I won my challenge. So 15 points on the board again, 2 out of 4 done. Let's do our tournament-ly spreadsheet check. Curio Centerville, 401 technically for the record books. First place out of 26 Masters, 15 CP earned, 2 out of 4 done. And the cost tracker for this is coming up to $10 entry fee. No travel, and then it was $145 in cash pricing for the pool, which was awesome. Sorry, cash pricing, store credit. So I have $145 of store credit to use at some point. Will I buy a responsible purchase? Absolutely not. I will almost certainly buy full art and bling cards for my deck, or Umbreons for my Umbreon binder. That's kind of what I do with all my store credit. Save a little bit for entry fees, or buy sleeves or cool cards. That's literally all I do with all my store credit. So that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Until next time, we'll see if I can keep the streak going.